Alex, who are we talking to today?
We are talking to Owen, our man. He is the owner and CEO of OCAT Fitness. He is a life and health coach. And I think he is kind of really is a guest that's really showing how the podcast is growing in the direction that we're trying to go. He had a lot of great things to
Totally.
share, a lot of things that you can carry on in your day-to-day life, and I think that people are really gonna hopefully take something from what he had to say. And I felt like we were just getting a little free one-on-one session with him, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you'll even hear me in the episode. I was like, "Wow, I need to do that." Like that's a great habit or just the things he shares and one common theme you'll hear throughout is focusing on the small wins. I
Mhm.
mean, Owen has a kind of side hustle business, we'll call it, and a full-time sales role and listening to him talk about balancing health and his schedule and just habits around that as well as his experience throughout college is super valuable. And I think that both Alex and I are extremely excited for this episode. So we
Yes.
hope that you enjoy it as much as we do.
Welcome to Project Rookie. I'm Jet.
And I'm Alex.
Whether you're in high school, college, or taking the first steps in a new career, we are here to uncover the promising tactics, genuine struggles, and inspiring victories that are supercharging the next generation of achievers. Thanks for tuning in.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual speakers and do not reflect the official policies or positions of their respective employers. Individuals on this podcast are not licensed financial or investment advisors, and its contents should not be used as investment advice.
All right. How's it going, everybody? We are back again with another episode. I say that every single time, but this time we have Owen Kattenbraker joining us. I'll let him introduce himself for a second, but I think we have a lot of cool stuff that we're going to get to dive into today with Owen. So welcome to the show, Owen.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm excited you guys wanted me on here. But a little bit about me. So I'm in sales. I graduated from Marquette this past May, like you guys did. And I currently work for a company called Flowtech in Mequon, just a few miles up the road from Milwaukee. I'm a business development representative working on the plumbers side, the residential home side of things. But I also run my own LLC. It's an online fitness coaching business that I started in my senior year. And it's been going for a little over a year now, and definitely looking forward to talking a little bit more about that and kind of the lessons I learned, and of course anything else that we plan on covering. But really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, we're super excited to talk with you.
All right, so let's just start off with something easy. If you took yourself back to high school, senior year, how did you go from that Owen to Owen at Marquette in the business school?
Yeah, going back to when I was a senior, I think the main thing I was really looking for in a school was a school that was going to give me a lot of business opportunities, and certainly Marquette did that. I think a number of the schools that I was looking at definitely provided that opportunity, but I specifically liked Marquette being in Milwaukee and all the connections that they had there in their alumni network. So that was ultimately what caused me to choose Marquette. Even though I grew up really watching the Badgers a lot and thinking my whole life I was going to go to UW-Madison, just the personable aspect of Marquette and how the class sizes are smaller, you get to know your professors a little bit more. That really was the determining factor in where I went to school. I'm really happy with the decision I made. I think it presented a lot of opportunities, and I definitely have utilized my network to get to where I'm at. In fact, my current job, my boss is a Marquette alum. So it kind of just shows you how much of an impact, how powerful that is to have that Marquette connection. And for that, I'm really thankful that I chose it.
Yeah, I think you brought up a good point there about kind of looking at the schools and themselves and how they can open up the door to future opportunities and such. One thing we talk about a lot is working on our networking, and we've done that in our LinkedIn episode, and we've talked about it a few other times. But
Mm-hmm.
one thing to really build your network is kind of setting yourself up in a place that allows you to make those connections and kind of
Right.
get those interactions. And so I guess where I'm going with this is you said going into it, you thought you were maybe going to be a Badger. You then looked into Marquette. Were there any other places that you maybe considered or thought that you would see yourself at? And could you maybe give a little bit more in depth on how you really kind of came to the conclusion of Marquette and such?
Yeah. I think everybody has a little bit different of a story and why they chose a school, because it's not always just, a logical choice. There's a emotion that goes
Yeah.
into it. Kind of a funny story as to something that kind of reaffirmed my commitment to Marquette. Every other school that I visited, you asked how many schools or what schools I visited. Butler was one of them. Valparaiso was another. A couple schools in Indiana. Drake was also a school in Des Moines that I visited. I visited University of Iowa, Alabama. But
Dang, that's quite the
coincidentally,
list.
You
yeah,
looked at way more schools than I did.
Yeah.
yeah, I visited quite a few, and to be honest, though, Iowa and Alabama were, because my sister had gone there for both undergrad and grad school, so that was kind of the reasoning there. I really didn't have a huge interest in those schools at the time, but the funny thing was, on those visits, the only visit to a school that actually had nice weather was my Marquette visit. And it kind of felt like that was meant to be in a way. When I went to Butler all the way in Indianapolis, it actually was raining so much that they got flooded, and I wasn't able to actually
Wow.
walk the campus. So it was kind of one of those things where I was like, is this a sign? Is this somebody telling me, this is where I should go? But that was, just kind of a funny little thing that happened. But in the end, I think proximity to home and both what I mentioned earlier about having that personability, that connection with your professors is really what caused me to choose Marquette.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't know if there was that much logic in it either. I didn't want to visit Marquette. It was kind of something my mom had me do. But I will say that, once I got there, and this probably happens for a lot of people when they choose schools, but I felt better. I don't know what it was, but you sometimes just have that feeling. And yep, the weather was nice. It was a good visit. And just not like some of the other schools. And maybe it was the people. I mean, sometimes it's probably a lot of different characteristics, but you got to go with your kind of inner feelings while you're on that visit. And I don't think that senior year I was thinking of the potential, like how good the alumni network is, or really understand what that means. But I
Yeah.
think that now I would totally, if I went back, I would still have chosen Marquette just because of the things that I studied and the programs that they had for me to study, and how insane the alumni connections have been post graduation. It's actually unreal. And I wonder if other schools have that. I mean, I'm sure other schools have really good alumni relations, but I feel like a lot of schools might have like that name that everybody knows, and that's what kind of gets you indoors. But at Marquette, we had alumni that can get you indoors. So I think it was super beneficial, and I probably couldn't say enough positive things about Marquette.
It's
Yeah.
funny because
No,
I feel
completely.
like this last 3 minutes has just been one long ad for Marquette. But wherever the listeners at home are looking into, just remember it's about where you feel most comfortable. And
Yep.
like Owen was saying, look for some of those signs, whether you think to look for them or not. is going to be some little thing that sticks out that will catch your eye and make it a truly 100% sure decision that you are in the right place or this is the right thing. And that can be translated to business and to whatever you're doing. Be aware of what's going on and look for the opportunity and take that time to really think and reflect on how this will affect you and how it can help you or negatively affect you. And whether you're at Marquette, we'll wrap it back in again, or you're at some other large university, it's the right place if you feel it's the right spot. So I feel like we should just bring that up too.
Yeah, all about how you feel when you're there. I think
Exactly.
that's a good way to end it. I might go on a little tangent here, since we're talking about kind of picking your school and that mindset you have. But I think that one thing people might consider is like, okay, well, is college for me? And my perspective on that is if you're excited to learn, because a lot of people don't know exactly what they want to do when they're going to college and picking a school. So you might pick it for a great engineering program, but that doesn't mean you're going to turn out an engineer. And we see it happen all the time. And so one thing I think that is good to get your mindset in thinking about before you're going to college is like, are you excited to learn, like learning in it of itself instead of kind of like a topic you're interested in learning? Because if you apply like an excitement or an interest to learning new things in general, I feel like you get so much more out of school, and you'll probably learn things you wouldn't have or you would have missed if you were kind of laser focused on learning one specific thing. But just want to throw that in there since we're in that pre-college mindset right now.
I think you brought up a great point there, Jet, and I'm kind of going to spin it into this. But so Owen, could you maybe touch upon what you actually ended up studying and graduating from? I forgot. Did you?
Yep.
I might have just missed that, and I'm sorry if I did. But
No, I don't think I did mention it. I went into marketing, graduated with a marketing degree, a concentration in sales. And kind of interestingly, I knew going into college that I wanted to do marketing. I did a lot of those assessments in high school where it tries to help you determine what area of school you should go into. And all of them always came back marketing. So I thought that was what I was going to do the entire time. I thought when I originally started, I was going to be a marketing director or something, and that was going to be my dream job. But then junior year, I had a conversation with Alex Milovic, Dr. Milovic. He's one of the professors in the sales program, and he told me basically just give sales a try. I had only had like one conversation with him prior, but he said, it seems like you would have the personality for sales. Why not give it a try? I think the original thing he actually asked that I come to in terms of sales was just the sales program meeting. And so I did, or the sales club. So I went to one of the meetings and I was like, you know what, this is kind of cool. The people in this are pretty cool. I feel like I found people that I can resonate with a lot. So I started going to more of those, became a member of the sales club, and then started taking sales classes junior year and just finished up with concentration in sales when I graduated. And obviously now sales is what I'm doing. It's what I do in my business every day. So, I'm really happy that he was able to influence me in that way.
Yeah, I think that what you said brings up an interesting point in my mind, and you kind of found your path by talking to faculty or like the professors at your school, and I think that's such an important thing that not everyone takes advantage of, because it was a similar way for me. Like, I didn't really have much real estate experience. I applied for the university's like inaugural class of this real estate investment program, didn't get in. Okay, so then I'm like, oh, well, I could have just left real estate and might have done that because I might have thought I wasn't going to get a job because I didn't get into the top program, or like not the program, but it's kind of like it's like a separate sub program under Marquette Real Estate. And the faculty advisor reached out to me and said, hey, let's meet. Let's figure out what you're going to do instead of this. And we just built this awesome relationship. And I was like, I became, tunnel vision real estate after that. But I think it's super important to like have a relationship with your professors. You can probably find out a lot. Like if you start talking to them and they're not your type of person, maybe that's not the type of major you want to go into. And especially the professors that either were in the industry or have currently a full-time job in the industry, they're a great idea of what a person is like that does that subject. Like most of the real estate professors actually had jobs in the industry or were currently still working in the industry and teaching part-time. They are very similar to everyone else I've met in real estate. And it's like not everyone's the same, but there's characteristics that become, kind of apparent throughout most people in the same industry. That's why you get the stereotype like, sales guy. Because there's similarities. I mean, that doesn't mean they're exactly the same, but you can kind of pick up on things if you pay attention. So I think that's really cool that you found your path through a professor just like me.
I thought it was pretty interesting that you said you took almost like a career placement in a sense. Like you kind of had something tell you on paper that said, hey, marketing, sales, this might be good for you. And for some of those who maybe at home are listening and they aren't sure of what they want to do either, that sounds like a great opportunity to expose them to new areas that they may never even have heard of, but based on their own interests and what they think is what they want to do, it may help them uncover it. So I think that was really awesome that you brought that up. And I think it's interesting because I too kind of had a similar going into college experience. I knew what I wanted. It was funny. I almost picked going to school where I wanted to go to school about my sophomore year of high school. I had to write a fake acceptance letter for this project. It was an English project, and there were about 5 different pieces, and one of them was write yourself a college acceptance letter, and it was trying to teach the formalities of writing and stuff like that. But I actually wrote it for Marquette to get in their mechanical engineering program. I do think it was interesting that you had taken a test that told you and you kind of stuck with it. And I kind of related to that because I, going into it, kind of had a similar sense of what I wanted to do and kind of had something pop out at me and tell me, hey, you should do this, because I didn't necessarily take a test, but through the research and reading through the course programs, I found an interest and really latched onto it. And I may not be a mechanical engineer now, but I am still a biomedical engineer, and I just focus in computing. So anything can happen as long as you kind of have an idea of what could be.
Yeah, dude. I think if I could give advice to somebody who might be in high school, maybe they're a junior or maybe even a senior, is talk to your advisor about any resources they have with those kind of assessments that you can do. Because that's what I did. I'm a type A person and I love to have a plan. So I really wanted to know what would probably be a good fit for me. And that was one of the ways I did it. I asked my advisor if she had any resources on that, and she gave me a couple of tests. And that's when I got the indication that marketing might be a good idea, but also just using the internet. Like, it's super simple, but just if you have an interest in some occupation or a type of job or an industry, just like search it up and read about it. I did that for months, man. I was just reading about the different levels or different occupations you can have. And that really, I think, gave me a good idea, at least an initial understanding of where I wanted to place my focus. And of course, when you go through college, you can change course, and a lot of people do, but maybe it will give you a much better understanding of what the landscape is. And then when you are deciding finally what you want to go into, you already have that baseline knowledge because you did all the work before.
Yeah, totally. Totally. You could also listen to the Project Rookie podcast, I think, to learn about careers. But
that'd be it. Yeah.
Were neither of you guys forced to take those assessments in high school?
Oh,
I was not.
I went to a college prep though. So like, I don't know. They just kind of
even more, you would think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. We were forced to take them. And I think about it like this because I don't necessarily feel like I ended up where those assessments told me I was going, but I also never paid attention to them because I was like, oh, it's not telling me what I wanted to tell me. However,
Yeah.
if you think about like we're talking about just little signs that kind of cause a feeling for what school you want to go to, those things, if it kind of like matches what you're feeling, then take it how it is. If it doesn't match what you're feeling, I mean, they're not working perfectly for everyone, but it can be one of those signs that kind of steer you in the direction of where your path ends up.
Yeah.
I might have had to do it. That might have been where this whole thing stemmed from.
Maybe it was.
Yeah, that kind of makes a little bit more sense.
So during college, you decided that you were going to do a little entrepreneurial endeavor and start your own fitness/coaching business. How
Yeah.
did that kind of idea come to life for you?
Yeah. So you guys might remember, Jet, you might remember, I did bodybuilding for a little bit in college. Never competed, but definitely got into the bodybuilding space. And that became a really big part of my life for the early part of college. I had an awesome coach throughout that process, and he really taught me a lot about fitness in general, about health, about mindset, and things like that. And it was just a really powerful experience for me. He was a really influential person on my life at that time too. And I thought that was really cool. And, I had always had a really big interest in health and fitness and growing up in a family with a lot of medical professionals. And I think it was kind of natural, but I really wanted to start this business to not only do what he did for people, but also help others not make the mistakes I did in terms of getting healthier. I think, we all make mistakes when we're trying to, whether it's lose weight, gain muscle, anything like that. When you're going on that process by yourself, it's easy to make a lot of mistakes. And I think the combination of those mistakes and then wanting to do something similar to what my coach did for me kind of was the motivation for that. But I also think going into college and throughout college and still now, the idea of being a boss or the idea of having an executive position at a company or something like that is cool to me and something I'm really interested in. So, there's no better way to be a boss than to start your own damn business. Like nobody else is going to be the boss. So I think all those things in conjunction were what led me to start the business.
Yeah.
Not to say that there wasn't a lot of hesitancy for a while and you getting really nervous about how it could go, if it's going to be a waste of your time, what are people going to think? But I think I guess the motivation was there enough to, cause me to take action and actually start the thing.
Definitely. I think it's great that you took the initiative to go and kind of have a little bit more say and forge your own path by starting this business, and that's something we obviously really push here on the show. But I think it really goes to show how, um, if you have an idea and you want and the drive to do it, no matter, like you were saying, you sometimes have to have that little thought of what are people going to think, how are people going to receive me within the community, and
Yeah. And it's
starting
natural, right?
yeah, and
Yep.
starting your own business is one of the hardest things. You're taking the ultimate risk besides a few other things in life. But how do you kind of keep yourself like continuously going with it all?
Yeah. I think when you first starting is the hardest part, like actually beginning
Totally.
the business,
Mhm.
deciding you're going to put money and time and resources into it. Once you see that can have a lot of benefit for you, and obviously it's really hard and you learn a lot of lessons, but you gain quite a bit of confidence when you start just actually doing things that you want to do instead of just worrying about what the outside world is going to think or perceive you as. So to say it gets easier, maybe that's not correct, but I think it definitely, you get used to and you build the strength to keep doing what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, it's your life, and letting other people determine what actions you're going to take is a recipe for a really unfulfilling life. So,
Yeah, and I think that Alex and I experienced a lot of the same feelings. I mean, I know we're not expecting to make money from Project Rookie, but
yeah,
just starting and putting yourself out there and like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to commit to doing this. That's
right.
difficult. I had multiple people be like, everyone's doing a podcast. Why would you do that? And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I want to help people just like you. Right.
Yeah.
I
You
think
want
that
to do it, man.
I think
Yeah.
there's cool information that we have to share, especially like while we're this age.
Right.
And so, yeah, but there is those people that initially are like, that's a dumb idea. And there probably is always going to be people that say that's a dumb idea. And you kind of just have to do what you want. But the other thing I want to point out is that you have a full-time job and have a kind of thing going on the side. And your thing going on the side, I don't know if it's, you're in a position to replace your day job with kind of the coaching business. But I think that having kind of something that's your own project while you're working on growing and learning maybe in the corporate world or whatever your day job is a really powerful kind of combination of things, because you get to take ownership in projects you're doing outside of work. And then when you're at work working for a company, you can kind of help work towards the company's goals too. And if you only, at least for me and my mindset, like if I was only working for someone else's goals, I wouldn't feel like excited or like I was doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
lucky,
fair.
like in my position, I get to feel like I have my own projects at work too. But if I was doing only work and not kind of trying to build a little bit of something for myself, I would feel like not very fulfilled. So I
Yeah.
think it's really cool that you do that.
Yeah, and everybody's different, what brings them fulfillment, and maybe working towards a common goal in a business is something that excites people, and that's cool too.
Yep.
Everybody's got different things that they enjoy and that bring them motivation and excitement and fulfillment. But yeah, essentially what you said is true of me too. I think one of the biggest benefits of running a business on the side is that it forces me to be productive and organized. Some days are better than others, of course, but I mean, running your own business, being your own boss, you have to be there for the business. Like you get tired after work, it doesn't matter. You still have clients to show up for, and whatever kind of side business you're doing, if you stop putting in the work, the business is going to die. So that's one of the biggest benefits, I think, of running something on the side, having some sort of side hustle, whether you're making money or not. You guys doing this podcast, it takes an additional level of organization and grit to be able to keep doing it when you're tired. And I think there's a lot of value in that for sure, just continuing to push yourself when it's not easy to. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with pushing yourself, which obviously is going to have a lot of benefit down the road.
Yeah, I
Totally
couldn't
agree
with you more on that. And I think especially coming from a perspective of bodybuilding and such, you have a little bit more experience being disciplined and kind of getting to that extra little bit or making sure you get your last set in, and that can kind of translate into your day to day and starting your own business and being successful at work. But how do you have any words for those, maybe how you kind of help others like kind of work up that grit like you were talking about, or kind of build up maybe that little extra bit of endurance so they could maybe spend an extra hour or an extra 2 hours after they get home from the day and they feel so tired, but they could just knock that extra set out or get that little bit of extra work done. Like what do you kind of have as a way to help people kind of get to that point?
Yeah, man. So my philosophy as a coach is just continually improving through little steps. It's never about trying to change your lifestyle 180 degrees. And Obviously, if that goes for health and fitness, that's going to go for your work life and your family life and everything else. It's all about sustainability. So when I have a client who is struggling with not working out after work, what I'm pushing them to do is just start with like 2 workouts a week, or sometimes it's even just, hey, hit 5,000 steps a day. Let's start with that. Let's make sure that habit is down and we get that consistent before we start to add other things. If you try to go from a completely sedentary lifestyle, eating like shit every single day, and then you try to meal prep every single meal, you try to start going to the gym every single day, you might follow that for like 2 weeks, like the January 1st people, they have these big goals, and it's great to set goals. But if you're setting something that's not going to be sustainable, it's not going to bring you a lot of benefit. It's not going to bring you, it's probably honestly going to do more harm than good, because you're kind of showing yourself that you're not going to stick to something and that you can't acquire wins for a long period of time. But if you can acquire little wins consistently for a long period of time, you're proving to yourself that you can improve and you can keep working towards that end goal that you have. So that's what I would say, just kind of as a general answer for people that that want to start improving their health journey, start building that endurance that you talked about, is just take little steps. It doesn't have to be anything drastic, but acquire those wins and then build off of those.
Yeah, it's that proof of concept, I think. And it's actually funny because, so this is a perfect time for me to plug that Owen is doing my workouts and meal plan for me. It's been awesome. But I think that what's interesting is a while back, like if I look back at sophomore and junior year of college, I was super diligent, got, myself to a good spot where I feel like I put on enough muscle where I was comfortable and everything like that. And then I started having like other passions and things I wanted to spend my time on. And I would let kind of those things get in the way of me being healthy and kind of working on myself. So I was like, okay, I am a scatterbrain. I have a million things going on in my brain. It's probably a good idea to let somebody else kind of save me time and tell me what I'm eating this week and tell me what I'm doing at the gym, because I would spend, 1 or 2 hours at the gym. Well, 1.5, 2 hours at the gym, which is too long for me to be able to get my other stuff done. And so I would just cut the gym out. Instead, Owen makes me like a quick workout plan. I have timers. I don't even have to think about what I'm buying at the grocery store. So it just saves me time in all these little places. And same for me. We had to do like little things at a time, because I would pack my schedule, and my girlfriend, my parents, everyone will tell you that I am like all over the place because I try and like do a million things at once. So if you're in that situation or just want somebody that can help you make little wins with your health goals, Owen is a great place to start. So there's your plug.
I appreciate that. Yeah, dude. And, everybody starts at a different.
Yeah, I think it's all about building kind of habits. So like if you, once you get a certain amount of workouts down, or this could be any goal, I'm using workouts, but once you get that down as a habit, then you don't have to think about it as much. So,
Yeah.
And then you can start adding, something else can take the spot of the time it took to think about doing that. And I think that people don't realize that thinking about doing the things sometimes can take a lot more time than you realize if you sit back and reflect on that kind of thing, or how much time you sit on your phone in the gym. Like,
if you think about a 10-minute task for 10 minutes, it's actually going to take you 20. So
Exactly. So quickly to wrap up kind of your business adventure, what do you see as your long-term goal with the business? Do you want to do it full time? Do you see it growing kind of in like right by the side of your real job, or not real job, but full-time job?
Right. Yeah. Good question, dude. So I may have had a different answer a year ago, but right now, kind of going along with the theme of sustainability, my goal right now is to stay in business, stay in the game.
Yeah.
And, that might sound a little weird, but a lesson that I learned from Alex Hormozy, who I'm sure you guys are familiar with, he talks about the way to win business is not to reach some monetary number, not to hit some revenue mark. It's just staying in the game. If you are staying in business and you continue to operate, you essentially are winning the game of business. And for me right now, that's what makes the most sense. And I'm happy with, the way I'm growing the business. And this isn't to say I don't want to grow it. I absolutely have aspirations of, the percentage increase that I want to see in my revenue. But the main goal is to just stay in business and keep this thing going and continue doing this thing that I'm really passionate about. So that it's not really a goal that I can quantify, but that's my goal for the moment and for the foreseeable future.
I think you brought up a great point there, because by mentioning how at the end of the day you would still like to see a revenue increase. Everybody wants to be paid more. However, in the end, you would ultimately just like to be around for the longevity of it. And I think that's a
Yeah.
great point to bring up, and especially from the fact of how passion and money, like, they don't get the same distance sometimes. Yes, you can buy your way through things. However, when the money stops flowing, though, will you have that determination, that little extra bit of effort to continue going and maybe make it through 3 hard months, a year? But then in the end, you'll still be prospering. You'll still be around for the longer of it. And I think that
Yeah.
was really just a great point to bring up right there, and something that for the viewers at home, they should keep in the back of their mind, that after a certain point, you can only get paid so much to continue liking something and doing it for a while. And I think there's an exception to the
Totally.
rule, but find something you're passionate about. Find something that you don't mind spending 40 hours, 60 hours, or even 20 hours a week, but make sure it's something you like doing. And yeah, that was just great.
It's funny. I bet we're in a like echo chamber of social media, because I don't know when I saw it, but it might have been Alex Hermosi that says this, but the quote is, the best games in life are unwinnable, which basically means there's not a day that most people are like, all right, I've made enough money, I'm successful, I'm stopping.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that kind of can apply to a million different things. Like, you don't win the game when you get married. You win the game by staying married. And
Yeah.
if you think about, you can apply that to a lot of different things. And that's exactly what you said. So I think it's a really cool quote. And another quote that I'm thinking of is like, the person who loves walking, walks farther than the person that loves the destination, or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm butchering that quote, but it's all about kind of the journey and what you love doing, and making sure you stay focused on that. And again, the small wins as you go, because there's never going to be a real end to the best games.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I'm sure everyone is wondering, what does the typical day in the life of a fitness coach look like? And do you have any kind of specifically, let's say, maybe healthy habits that you have to do every day, or that are definitely part of your routine? And yeah, like, what does your day look like? I mean, I'm sure none are the same, but
Yeah. Like everybody else, every day is different and different shit comes up. But a couple rules that I have for myself are, one, to exercise every day. And that could just be going for a walk, or it could be doing my weightlifting workout, but I have to exercise every single day. And number two is hitting my protein goal. I mean, everybody's going to have a different protein goal, but for me, if I'm doing that, that's an indicator that I'm eating the way I should be. So obviously, when you're eating right, you're going to perform better. Your mind is going to function better, and your body's going to function better. So I think that's really important, and maybe something that's underutilized for people looking to increase their productivity at work or their performance and stuff like that. And I think another thing that I do is I force myself to do something I don't want to do. And every day that's different. Some days it's making a cold call to somebody I know is not the friendliest, but I need to make that call, and other times it's updating a client's program at just things like that are going to bring you closer to your ultimate goals or who you want to be and how you want to live. Doing that when you know it's something that you'd rather just skip out on, I think is really powerful. And to continue on with the theme we're talking about, that's a little win that you can mark off and add into your, mental bank and know that you're able to make those little improvements.
This episode's gonna have to be called Small Wins, I think, because we have so many reoccurring themes on small wins.
Yeah.
But I think it's great.
What's up, guys? This is Owen from OCAT Fitness, just interrupting real quick to talk about something that's really important for your overall success in the workplace. I'm talking about your health and fitness. We all know that if we neglect our health, we won't have the mental clarity or the energy that we otherwise would. So if you're currently struggling to make real progress in the gym, and maybe you already work a sedentary job that makes the process that much harder, I'd love to be able to help you through this process like I've done for a number of other clients that are in the exact same position as you. If you're interested in creating a better lifestyle for yourself that'll allow you to have more energy and more mental focus in the workplace, then check out OCAT Fitness in the show notes. Head to my Instagram page and send me a DM. We can talk about your goals, your lifestyle, your situation, and create a plan that's going to help you get to where you want to be. All right, we'll talk soon. Now back to the show.
Still on your day-to-day, do you have any habits that you've kind of picked up from other people that have kind of really influenced you and kind of you don't really, besides maybe hitting your protein goals, exercising, things like that you're kind of ingrained in now, but some maybe newer things that you're trying out or whatnot?
Yeah, man. One habit that I have started implementing since starting my job, since getting out of college, really, and I'm not sure where I heard this, but it's something that's been really helpful for me, is I make a list of today, tomorrow, and the next day. And then under the descriptions or under the titles, I'm going to write down the most important things I have to get done that day. And it's not about overwhelming yourself on that list. It's just writing down the most important ones. So the reason I think that's been so helpful for me is, you can write down Monday through Sunday and formulate your whole week and how it's going to look and stuff like that. But we all know that in the middle of the week, shit can change and
Totally.
Something can happen and your whole plan, goes to shit. So
Yes.
What I think's been really helpful with that is focusing on 3 days at a time is a lot easier than 7. And not to say that stuff can't still happen and kind of shake up plans, but you can make the viewpoint, or you can make what you're looking at a little bit easier, and you can probably control it a little bit better. And if something else happens to come up after those 3 days, well, that's the benefit of it, is you didn't do anything more. You only set out the next 3 days. You didn't set out an entire week. So consolidating that, making the plan a little bit easier on yourself, I think is really helpful. And then obviously just only focusing on the most important task instead of everything else that you can possibly think of, because that's just going to become overwhelming.
I am so happy that you said that, because I don't do that right now, but just processing the kind of what you said about that strategy would probably completely influence how I plan my days, because sometimes and like I said, I'm a little bit of a scatterbrain. Sometimes my mind's just always working. So if I don't kind of think about what the highest priority items are at that time, something else will pop into my head and I'll do that. So I think that I am 100% going to try and start doing that. And I also love that you said one of the habits that I do actually have recently started using is forcing myself to do something that I don't want to do on that day. And it's like, whether it's tomorrow I'm waking up at 5, even though I don't have to be up till 7, just finding something that you don't want to do and just doing it anyways. The feeling after is just proof of concept again. and a small win for your day. So
Yeah.
I think that those two are like what really resonated with me.
I'm
Yeah. Go ahead.
no, you're good. This is
Uh,
about you.
so I was just going to say, I think another benefit of just doing today, tomorrow, and the next day, writing out those lists, is you can kind of have a mental train of thought that you can keep consistent. And even if something gets a little bit disrupted during those 3 days, you can just, again, tomorrow is going to be the same thing. And I think that's kind of the cool thing about it, is you keep creating that list every day, and kind of keep a theme going. And if something does happen to come up, it's okay, because tomorrow you're making the list again, and you can continue on, kind of adjust course a little bit and make sure that you're getting those things done, instead of putting big projects, at the back of your mind and then never getting to them. I think that's another thing that's really helpful about that.
So when you're talking about these lists, do you mean like a physical, like you're writing it down, or are you
Yep.
typing it up in your phone?
I write it down, but I would imagine it doesn't matter if
I'm personally a
maybe.
fan of writing it down as well, so I was just
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, same. I'm
And
going to
some
write it
people
down.
might remember it better. Yeah, but I think just the act of planning a little bit, not to the extent where if something gets thrown off, you just throw it all away and you don't do anything. But to give you kind of a roadmap of where you want your next few days to be headed.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just laughing at myself because I'm notorious for making like massive to-do lists. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I have a million things on my mind. I'm writing them all down right now. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
like when half of it doesn't get done, I'm like, goodbye to that to-do list. Let's
Yeah.
write a new
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
I-
massive fan of that strategy.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea because you're also kind of working. One big thing in designing products and when you're trying to get users engaged is they talk about gamification of it. And that's kind of what I think of and something I've been trying to roll out in my own life.
What does that mean, Gib?
So with
Alex?
this, it's turning some normal task, but you're kind of incentivizing it, not necessarily monetary or through a prize, but you're kind of tricking yourself into these little small wins. You're gaming this, making everything into a game almost. And when you're completing
Beautiful.
tasks or you are using an app or something like that throughout that process, that's basically what it is. I might have butchered that. I'm not an expert here, but
I think it makes sense.
yeah,
It makes sense to me.
you're kind of making things more fun, but at the same time, it could be throwing out trash, but you're making it more fun. So it makes people
Yeah.
want to do it. And I kind of think of this with doing chores, with just getting day-to-day tasks done. And one thing I tried actually this past week was I set like almost a little interval for myself. So in a 4-hour window, I had a 30-minute alarm. And so after that 30 minutes, I'd have to go on to the next thing. And I had some people coming and I had a bunch of work to do. So with the work that I was working on, I was able to pick up and just kind of come back to it and go. I didn't necessarily have to sit there. And so I thought, okay, I need to clean my whole apartment. And I have 4 hours till they get here. And I also have to get this done. So then every 30 minutes, I'd switch from cleaning to doing this work, doing this work. And I was trying to see which one I could do in less time and blah, blah, blah.
Keep your brain fresh,
Exactly.
though.
And I
Yeah.
almost felt that in itself was more stimulating and almost made doing the dishes, doing my laundry way more fun. And so that's why I brought up, I gamified it. I made it something that I did not want to do, and I turned it into something that now I wouldn't mind doing again in the future. So
That's another cool example, and a simple example that I think of is like if you're like, I need to get my homework done or I can't go out.
Yep.
Going out is your reward. Going out or hanging out with friends is your reward for doing your homework. So
Exactly.
there's kind of like attaching a reward or an incentive or like a bit of fun or a challenge to yourself for those habits. But moving on, one thing I know you wanted to chat about, Owen, is maybe some helpful tips for balancing healthy habits, both physically and mentally, while you're working. I'm going to call it a desk job or a sedentary job, similar to like mine. I'm in front of a computer all day, and I do have a standing desk, but
Nice.
there's not much activity outside of that. So just looking to you for some tips.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely difficult. And I feel that too, because my job is a desk job. So I'm not getting a ton of activity in during the day. But some tips I would say for staying active are walking to the bathroom more, drinking more
Yeah.
water. If you drink more water, you're going to have to use the bathroom more. And that's, even though that may seem insignificant, if you're getting an extra, couple hundred steps every day, that adds up over the course of a week. And it's
Hmm.
better than not doing that, at all. And also drinking more water is a great thing for you too. But things like that, taking the steps instead of the elevator, that's something I do. I live on the 6th floor. It's kind of a rule that I have. I always take the steps on the way down, not always the way up, because that's uh, pretty challenging and kind of makes it not fun to get home knowing that I have to walk up the stairs. But
Yeah.
kind of setting little rules for yourself like that, that are going to cause you to
Hmm.
be a little bit more active, park further away in the parking lot, just general things
Those are
that
all
you,
great. Yeah.
yeah, that people may or may not have heard before, but they really over time can make a sizable impact on how much activity you get in. So I would say that from a fitness perspective. And then in terms of nutrition, I think packing your own lunches is massively beneficial. It
Huge.
is so easy because we are emotional creatures. When lunchtime hits, you're probably tired, you want to release, and it's really easy at that time, seeking that release, that you're going to want to go out and get some Taco Bell or KFC, something that
Yeah.
might be really high in calorie, but really not the best for you. And because you've been sitting down all day, or maybe just getting a few steps in, all those calories aren't really being put to good use,
Yeah.
and that's not to say on occasion that you can't go out to eat with coworkers and things like that. But packing your own meal, taking away the decision fatigue for that meal, and kind of letting that just be your release, and even turning to other modes of stress reducing, whether that's listening to music or watching a YouTube video, something like that, is really helpful for making sure you don't overeat. And then I think another thing that I come across with a lot of clients is if somebody brings in donuts, or they bring in pizza for lunch or something like that.
Guilty.
uh Health,
Oh
yeah,
my
and
gosh.
it's common, it's really common. And
Yeah,
I
but they
think
make you feel guilty for saying no. They
exactly,
seriously are like,
and
you like feel
exactly,
Oh,
bad.
you're not gonna
yep.
take one?
And
Yeah.
and that's exactly, and that's something that's important to recognize, and something I do recognize as a coach. So the approach to that, instead of just saying no and trying to again completely run into decision fatigue, if you're always trying to say no to certain types of foods, eventually that's going to run out. For most people, it does run out, and then you end up making bad choices maybe when you get home at night. So the strategy there is to allow yourself to indulge a little bit, but watch your portions. And maybe that means on a certain day, you make your lunch a little bit smaller that you brought. Let's say you brought some chicken, and you brought rice, and you brought broccoli. And then there were some donuts there for breakfast, and you typically don't eat breakfast. Well, you allow yourself to have maybe a half a donut or something, still allowing yourself to have a little bit, split the donut with somebody, make it a shared experience. And then maybe when you're eating lunch, maybe you don't eat the rice in your meal to kind of balance out the calories, and or if you don't want to do that, maybe when you get home, your dinner's a little bit smaller. So kind of working in, it's kind of like a if it fits your macros type approach, but it's more lifestyle based, and kind of situation based. If something happens and you really want to take part in it, just be smart about it and practice that moderation, and acquire those wins so that you can, start to build that consistency for yourself. And overall, I think it's a much healthier way to live than being really strict, and
Yeah.
really overly regimented with your nutrition plan.
Yeah. I'm a huge, like, most of the time kind of person. Like, I don't eat chips most of the time. That's like my goal. Or like
Yeah,
now I actually do that. Like, there's some habits that I've built. Like, I'm going to decide I take the stairs most of the time. Then I'm more
yeah,
excited on a day I hit the elevator. Like, yay, I've earned it,
hmm
And then, so that's how I feel like I build some of those habits. I'm still working on a few of them, but the ones
We
that I've
all
developed
are,
over
yeah.
time, it was because like I do this most of the time. And as long as it's most of the time, in general, like over a long period of time, you'll start seeing improvements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, like we talked about, man, if you're trying to 180 your lifestyle, it's not going to stick and you're not going to keep doing it. But if you can do, I think people, you hear a lot online about what's the optimal plan, what's the optimal nutrition plan, workout plan. Is it really optimal though if you're only following it for a couple of weeks? What's
No.
really optimal is following a plan that you do over and over and over for weeks at a time
Most
until
of the
you
time.
actually reach. Yeah, most of the time, then you actually reach your goal instead of giving up, shortly after starting.
I think
Totally.
that's a great thing you brought up, and that's kind of why we wanted to start Project Rookie, was to help kind of weed some of those things out of there and make it a little easier to see how, like you were just saying, it doesn't necessarily need to be a full 180 or a full give it your all 100%, but as long as that consistency is there and just brick by brick you're building it up, the house will get built in no time. May not be overnight, but you'll still have it in the end.
Yeah. So we saved a super interesting experience for last that I think that, I don't know if you're excited to share, but I think that our audience is super curious on maybe a situation like this. And so I'm not going to explain too much. I'll let you tell the story, but you graduated, had a job lined up, and pretty quick into your job, we're like, this is not for me. And in that moment, you're like, what do I do? And so that's kind of where I want you to start with, like, once you got there, what were you thinking about and how did you turn that around to getting into the job you're in right now?
Yeah, I'll leave company names out of this, but
Totally. Yeah.
I accepted this first job I had out of college. I'm now at my second job, but I accepted this first job pretty early on. I think I was actually it was the summer before senior year, so I accepted it really early. Had about 15 months in between actually accepting and starting the job, and the reason that I stuck with it was, first of all, I had an internship that led into this job opportunity, but it was also kind of a relief of having my decision been made, knowing what I was going to do post college. Yep. So I quit exploring my options and assumed that this was going to be the right fit for me. And that may have been my first mistake, is not continuing to learn just to make sure that was what I really wanted to do. I think even if you have accepted a job, I think it's still okay. You don't have to interview, but I still think exploring what other opportunities are out there, especially if you haven't entered the workforce yet, because you don't know what a job is until you actually start. So having as much knowledge as you can about different job opportunities that you can, I think is really beneficial. But that's not to say I regret this happening and moving on from my first job quickly. I think it allowed me to, without the stress of having to look for a job and interview during senior year, it gave me a lot more time to actually start this business and get it up and running. But that being said, if you're somebody who is a senior in college, you already have a job accepted, and maybe like you think it's probably the right fit for you, it may be worth just looking around a little bit and, not going against the word that you gave your company, but just, seeing what else is out there and see if there's anything else that maybe seems like a better fit. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
I just kind of thought of this. Did you, when exactly did you know that you wanted to start and kind of get the ball rolling on the whole, on OCAT Fitness, if we can shout it out on the show?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We should have plugged the name.
Yeah.
So
this is a two-parter. Sorry. I'll follow up with the second once you're done.
Sure. November is when I started the business, November of my senior year. So first semester, senior year, it's been about, what is that? a little over a year
Yeah.
now. I don't know, 15 months or something.
Yeah.
I would say I had the idea for about a year prior to
Okay.
that. And then I finally pulled the trigger in November and formally became an LLC shortly after that. So it was a lot of thought before that, a little bit of planning, but then really just going for it, taking action in November was the start.
And this is where the second part comes in. Do you think that potentially you taking this full-time position so soon, was it potentially because of some subconscious, you kind of wanted to leave yourself open to start this business, kind of free yourself up for it? Or
That's an awesome question.
I
Yeah.
mean, I
I
don't
don't
know
know.
if if you can even think back to the time, but maybe we could reflect on it now and kind of
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that I know for sure I wanted to have an idea of what I was doing after college as soon as possible.
Mhm.
I don't necessarily know if it was because I knew I was going to for
Yeah.
sure start this business, but I definitely wanted to make a decision.
Mhm.
And that kind of brings up a side point that, don't be in too much of a hurry to make a decision.
Yeah.
Obviously, in interview processes, when you get to the final round, they're going to give you a couple of weeks or a week to get back to them, and that's understandable. Every situation's different, and if you feel like that's the best case for you, then go ahead and take the job. I'm not saying don't take it just to keep looking,
Mhm.
but being in a huge hurry for finding that job, or really a lot of things that you can correlate that to or relate that to in business, make sure you're really giving it a lot of thought and doing your due diligence with research to make sure it's a good decision for you.
Yeah, I have one more question on top of kind of that topic.
Yeah.
If you're willing to share, if besides kind of don't be in too much of a rush, like if I'm a senior right now in college, is there any questions that I should be asking that you might have didn't ask and thought you should have asked or were nervous to ask before that might have like steered you in a different direction?
Yeah. I think asking more about the day to day of being an employee at a certain business, what a
Yep.
job actually looks like, and even being brave enough. I don't think I asked this question, but being brave enough to ask, like, what are the biggest challenges that people tend to see
Huge.
or that
Yep.
you saw in this role, and then what are the biggest benefits, and gauging those answers. If they say something about the cons of a certain role and that doesn't sound like a very big deal to you, then maybe that's a really good position for you. But if they say something where you're like, oh, that sounds awful,
Yep.
maybe you should keep on looking. That probably isn't the job for you. So I think that's a huge question that I probably actually I'm most certainly know that I didn't ask that question. I think it would have been really helpful.
Yeah. I think that one other strategy I would offer is, and I didn't do this back then, it's obviously easier to talk in hindsight,
Yeah,
but
hindsight's 2020. Yep.
I kind of did this, but not intentionally, is when you're looking for kind of like the role you want to be in, you can use your school's alumni network to figure out people that might be in that role or are close to something in that role. Even if they're across the US, we have ways of connecting with them. And even if they're not at the same company, they're in that industry and they might be able to offer you kind of a good picture of what a day in their life is. And it will be candid. It's not like a recruiter telling you. And also, no offense to recruiters, but they're not doing the job they're hiring you for.
Nope.
So they don't always know exactly what a day in the life is. And I
Yeah.
always felt that when I was talking to recruiters was like, I feel like you don't fully know what a day in the life is, or they'd give you some answer that's kind of beating around the bush. So I was like, I need to find somebody who knows what a day in the life is, and leveraging your school's alumni network through LinkedIn or word of mouth, or again talking to your faculty would be a really good way to kind of get some of those unfiltered answers to your interview questions. And at the end of the day, you're trying to make sure the company is a good fit for you just as much as the company is trying to make sure you're a good fit for them. So I would usually, for example, and I'll leave with this, but a quick example is like, I'll say, I don't want to waste your time. I want to make sure that I'm as good of a fit for you as you think I am. So like, what might this look like? Because I struggle with this. Or just kind of like saying, I'm trying to help you, so I'm going to ask this question, even though you're like, really, like, I want to freaking know. But I'm going to help you by asking this question.
Yeah. It's a good way to phrase it a little differently, especially if maybe you aren't sure of how to ask it or don't maybe have the confidence to straight up ask it.
And it's not fake helping them. Like, you do want to know, but maybe if that's a question that, they probably want you to know as much information as possible, because if they don't want you to get in the job and hate it, you're not going to be productive for them. You're not going to be a good employee for them. You're not going to be the right fit. So obviously there's probably certain guidelines with questions you should ask in interviews, but there's a lot of things that are totally innocent, especially when you're right out of college, that you might be nervous to ask.
Yeah. And you mentioned talking with your alumni network or mentors. I had a mentor that I gained through the mentor program at Marquette, but kind of something that I would recommend for people is to have somebody that you can occasionally meet up with, go to get coffee with, and talk to about the industry that you're looking into. I had a mentor that was incredibly helpful that I stayed in contact with throughout the second half of college. And then in getting my second job, he was very helpful at kind of steering me in certain directions, based on the knowledge he had and the experience he had, the people he knew. So I think looking for somebody that is in the field that you're looking into, that's somebody that you should reach out to, because people always want to help, and they typically are happy to share their experience, with somebody who's just trying to learn and get their foot in the door somewhere that you can talk to and somebody that you can trust.
It's always just so much easier to get through your day to day when you have a question and there's a resource that's there, and you don't have to scour Google or go through a book or something like that to find the answer. People usually have gone through a similar experience to what you are going through now, and sometimes their insight may be a better help than something you just stumble upon in the world. So I think a mentor is a great thing for anyone who's listening, and if you can't find one, maybe reach out. We'll see what we can do in the future.
Yeah, totally. Use us as a resource. Hopefully this podcast can be a resource for you as well. Just like Owen said, we're huge proponents of believing that everyone wants to be helpful. I mean, Alex and I love sharing our experiences so much that we do it every 2 weeks for you. So hopefully you can use this as a resource. Quick question also, if there's any questions or topics that you might be wondering about or want to see on a future episode, like we'll probably do one on mentorship now that was brought up, but any future topics, feel free to let us know on social media, in the comment section, email us. We're pretty easy to find. And we're happy to figure out how to find the resources to answer the questions you have. That's our whole goal of this podcast. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much, Owen, for joining us today. I think this was I was excited for this episode, but I am way more excited for it now. It was a really great episode, and I appreciate your time, and so does it. Yeah, we appreciate your time. All right, and that's the pod. If you enjoyed the show, it'd mean the world for you to leave us a review and share it with your friends. Make sure to follow our podcast on your favorite listening platform. And if you're joining us on YouTube, definitely hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of our new episodes. Also, check us out on social media. We're at Project X Rookie on both Instagram and X. We'd love to chat with you in the comments or in our DMs. Thank you for listening, and as always, I hope we're helping you take control of what's next. Catch you next time.